We should meet, if necessary, every month in order to discuss our problems. No one should go away with the idea that in the coming months we would be doing nothing, while the British government would be allowed to carry on the administration as it likes. In the very nature of things, British imperialism cannot last long, and the burden of administering our own country must fall on our own shoulders whether we are ready or not. The Congress was not driven out of office, it retired by itself. It is no use praying to God for the resignation of ministries. The credit, if any, is due to the Congress itself. We have given a pledge to our own electorates not to stick to office if by so doing the interests of the country suffer. Then a time came when the Congress felt that it could not continue in office any longer without detriment to the cause for which it existed, and you may rest assured that the Congress is not going back to office until it can wield the real power of governance in a free India. When the war started, Gandhiji declared his sympathy with Britain. Pledged as we were to freedom, we could not have any sympathy for Nazism, though it must be confessed that it was the humiliating Treaty of Versailles which the Britishers and their friends imposed upon Germany that was responsible for Nazism. However, Gandhiji made it clear that the Congress did not agree with him on this question. The Congress had bitter memories of the Great War. With this knowledge, it is but natural that the Congress should ask the British government whether it was prepared to declare that India would be free at the end of the war. The demand was natural and proper. The reply was that we were not united, that minorities need to be protected, and that the princes had to be placated. How could we continue in office when such was the attitude of the British government? There can be no compromise so long as we have a third party in our midst. There cannot be a compromise between the minorities and the Congress. We have had ample experience in the past. The British statesmen, in order to win the sympathy of the world, now go on repeating that they are willing to give freedom to India when India is united. It is difficult to understand the position of the League. What does it want? The Congress has made friendly approaches repeatedly, but every time it has met with a rebuff. The League goes on rejecting whatever is offered without formulating its own demands. The Anglo-Indian papers, which for the moment appear to represent the League's point of view, urge the formation of coalition ministries. The League has made it clear whether it wants them and on what terms. Congress is anxious to make friends, but with who? This is the question. There cannot be a friendship unless there is a willing mind on both sides. The condition precedent to any negotiations which Mr. Jinnah makes is that the Congress should accept the League as the sole representative of the Muslims in India. To concede the claim of Mr. Jinnah is for the Congress to commit suicide in the hope of being reborn a Hindu organization. Even if we are a handful, we will not allow the Congress to commit political harakiri. If the resignation of ministries has brought real deliverance, it is to the ministers who had their daily worries. Our internal differences have disappeared. The Congress has again accepted the leadership of Gandhiji, the only man who can lead us to victory. He is the miracle worker. Under his guidance, we must now work. If there are any among congressmen who are impatient about his methods, they are welcome to try out their own experiments. But they will fail. Success will depend only upon loyally following the lead of Gandhiji.